Okay, Tommy McEwan, a.k.a. Lewis King, welcome to the Blues Hotel, and thanks for taking time out to chat.
Mate, my pleasure. I'm inside in Melbourne in winter, and I've got the heater on. I couldn't be happier.
Minus what? -1, -2 degrees?
Oh, man, I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. It was spot on 0. And I went, and I live near the beach. So I feel sorry for everyone who lives probably 5 miles inland. They're probably copping it.
Oh, indeed.
But I'm normally, and this sounds a bit odd, I'm normally leave Melbourne in around about mid-May and go to Europe for 3 months because there's gigs that I do over there as well. And this year is the first year for a long time that I've been home. And it's not good.
Oh. Tommy, can you tell me what's the story behind the name Lewis King?
Do you know, have you ever heard of a band called The Detonators?
I can't say I have.
It's a legendary Melbourne band. They've been going for 30 years.
Right.
And I was playing in a band called the Straight Eights, and Ray Tully, the drummer. I shouldn't have said that name. But anyway, Ray put out an album under another name. I can't remember what it was. And I remember talking to him at a show one night. He said, "Don't put out an album under your own name in case it's no good."
That's it.
And I was playing with a band in Melbourne called the Swinging Sidewalks, which you probably don't remember, but was on a show called The Big Gig.
The Big Gig, yes.
They were the house band.
Wendy Hammer.
I play drums as well as guitar and stuff. So that's a lot of my gigs are drum gigs. So I recorded the album, and there was a song on the album called "I Used to Be a Werewolf, But I'm All Right." Right? It was a joke song.
Yes.
But a guy in Sydney called Doug Mulray,
yes,
who was a very famous DJ, he recorded it and had a bit of a hit with it in New South Wales. And I took the money, and he said, "I want 10 more of those." So I went in and recorded the first album. We didn't know what we were doing. We just recorded it. And at the end of it, my girlfriend said to me, who's now my beautiful, darling wife, "Well, you better launch it." And I said, "What does that mean?" So we did a CD launch for it on one of those Yarra boats that go down the Yarra, and it was full. It was packed out, and all of a sudden it started getting played on Triple R and PBS, which is our big independent radio stations here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I got called up to do an interview, and I went, "What am I supposed to do now?" And then I had to think of a name for it. And because I'm a huge fan of Louis Jordan and B.B. King, I just stuck them together thinking, "Oh, well, this is only going to be one album. Don't worry about it. It'll die like everybody else's albums do." And our first gig was playing before Screaming Jay Hawkins. And then the second gig was a tour in New South Wales with Buddy Guy. And,
right.
And I said to myself, "Well, how easy is this? I'm a star now."
Oh, wow.
We're selling bucket loads of CDs, and I got a big ego and started wearing flashy clothes. Oh, no, I had that already. We did that lot of gigs. And then we got offered Blues Fest, and we did that for 4 years running. I came over and did Bridgetown, I think, around about that time. And then I got an offer to go to Europe with Red Rivers, he plays with Don Walker. He's a country guitar player.
Yeah, right.
And I did that tour, and the promoter on the tour's friend came up to me one night and said, "Your name is not Tommy, it's Lewis King." And I said, "How do you know that?" And he showed me my first album.
Oh, wow.
And he'd got it from a guy called Bruce Iglor. Is that a name that you're familiar with?
No.
He started Alligator Records.
Oh.
That guy.
Yeah, right.
And I did a gig one night with Dave Hull.
Dave Hull, yes.
We opened for Dave Hull, and he said to me, "I like your band. Have you got a CD?" So I gave it to him. He didn't particularly like it, but he sent it to Bruce Iglor, and he didn't particularly like it. So he sent it to a European promoter who loved it. And so between all of that, I ended up doing a tour about 2 years later, and I've been going over there ever since and doing blues festivals, rockabilly festivals. It's a huge scene in Europe. And so it gets me out of Melbourne winter. But, it fluctuates. Sometimes I'm busy, sometimes I'm not. But it's always Lewis King. The band changes.
The lineup changes all the time, yeah.
Well, I've had the same drummer and bass player for the last, I'd say, 6 years. That's Tim Burnham, who plays with Lloyd Spiegel as well. He's his drummer, and Malcolm Beveridge, who's like a legend here in Melbourne. We're very lucky that we all get on well, and we like to sit in the back of the van because it's sort of a thing that you can't get on with many people in Australia because the road trips are so long. But anyway, that's a long story that went nowhere, isn't it? But that's how Lewis King came about.
Sure. What can you tell us about your background and how you got into blues?
When I was about 12, I think, I lived in Glasgow in Scotland. I was from there, and I got right into The Who.
Yes.
Because, Tommy, and the album was Tommy. And I managed to see them live at the Greens Playhouse when I was about 12 years old, and that was it. I just was in a state of shock for months. Mind you, I couldn't hear anything for days, so that was fine. And my brother, who was 10 years older than me, used to say, "Why you listen to that stuff?" And he had like Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee. He had B.B. King live at the Regal, and he would make me listen to all these albums. And eventually he said to me, "Right, I'm going to get you to come along and see B.B. King live at the Festival Hall here in Melbourne." And because he was a press photographer, he gave me a fake empty camera. So I ended up down the front, and I just stood there with my jaw on the floor because
I'm sure
that legendary 70s band was out there. So it would have been 78, 79, something like that. And then I started just listening to that music. And then I went over to the UK in about 1980, I think, for a year and a half, and got into ska and reggae. Came back to Melbourne, and I joined a band called No Nonsense, which was kind of one of those 80s bands. We were on Countdown and Hey Hey It's Saturday all the time because we were funny. And then that went for 5 years, and I went, I'm out of here. So I went to the States just to get my brain back into gear, and went to New Orleans and got into that kind of music. And then when I came back to Australia, I thought, what the hell am I going to do? I'm too old to be a pop star and too ugly. And I thought, well, I love the blues, and I had enough songs left over from the end of that band, and I put out that first album, which is a mishmash of songs. And all of a sudden, it started getting played. So that's the story up till today.
Yeah, right.
It was a happy accident, and the more I did it, the more I dug it. And because I was in a band that was big on the live show, I tried to put that stuff in my act. So Lewis King is this crazy person who comes out on stage and is, smarter than the average bear and tells gags. And then I walk off stage and people go, "You're really funny." And I go, "Yeah, cheers, thanks." And I go to bed.
Oh my.
And luckily my formula works. I played in the States and they dug it, a bit like taking Coles to Newcastle. But and then in the UK, I guess you'd describe my music as a cross between Dave Edmunds and B.B. King, I guess. I don't know. And in the UK, they just warmed to me, and the same in Holland and Belgium and France. They get it. They like that music, So, and they like Australian music because we're just tough. I mean, when you played a 2 gigs in Kalgoorlie, and people are shouting at you,
yeah.
I mean,
Kalgoorlie.
that toughens you up.
Oh, it does. It does,
And
Kalgoorlie.
and I still remember someone saying to me that they saw INXS play in Germany in the middle 80s, early to middle 80s, and they said we'd never seen anything that tight or that tough. They were a road-ready band that came out, and that's what I like about playing in Australia. You got to have your wits about you.
Yep. Otherwise, you never. Yeah. Yep. Sure.
I
So
mean,
now,
I was just going to say, you get off the plane in Holland, and there's a nice guy who picks you up and takes you to your first gig, and they say, "Oh, if it's not too much trouble, we'll do a sound check. Your dinner's ready." And afterwards they say, "Would you like to go out for a wine?" Yeah, sure.
yeah.
It's not you guys sit up there, and when you're done, bugger off.
That's it. Jeez. Now, Tommy, Little Devil is your latest masterpiece.
You think? The last album we did was one of my favorite I've ever done. And when I finished it, we had gig. We were launching it in Adelaide, and then we were going to Brisbane, Sydney, and then gigs in Melbourne. And I went to pick the van up to drive the boys to Adelaide, and the rental company said, no rentals, COVID restrictions are on. So we were locked down for 2 years after that. And so this album, I kind of went, all right, let's get ourselves happening for another one. And these, a lot of these are songs that I wrote in Europe last year.
Sure.
Just inspired, I guess, by the scene over there. And so, yeah, that's the idea of Little Devil. I like to have fun with music, and I like to have fun with audiences. I don't think people want to come to your gigs and be bored.
No.
And be told how sad. And I don't think that's what the blues is. I mean, your average B.B. King song starts out with something stupid that he's done, and how are we going to fix this?
Yeah. Exactly.
My baby left me. I don't know what to do. She walked out and hit me with a piece of 4B2. That and I think I get sort of sick of watching bands standing up there telling me how bad their life is, and you go, "Oh yeah, down to your last 50 grand,"
That's it. Help me.
Yeah. But also, I mean, the blues allows you to say things that you couldn't say in polite conversation. And I think country music, it allows men to sort of bare their soul a bit, I guess. But I think it's problem solving music, the blues.
It is. I believe that too.
Yeah, in its purest form. It's watching someone who's even worse than you.
Yep.
Try to solve their problems.
Indeed. So, what do you enjoy most about performing live?
I was watching something, a documentary series about country music about 6 months back.
Yes,
a famous one that's on SBS and stuff. And Waylon Jennings said most musicians are really people who like to travel.
Yes.
And the music gives them an opportunity to do that. And really, I've always been a gypsy. Like I said, I lived in the UK, I lived in Europe, and that's what I dig. And the opportunity to be lucky enough. I mean, I love the gigs and stuff, but it's the communication and meeting people.
Yes.
The fact that you can go over there, and some of these people become family.
Yeah.
Like my Dutch band that I play with over there, they've come and stayed here. All 8 of them with their clogs on our wooden floors. Closely followed by my wife with a dustpan. Shh, take your clogs off.
That's it. Yep.
And they don't know to close a screen door. So she's going, "There's mozzies everywhere."
Oh God. Yep. And they have no idea.
Well, she came over one trip I did, and I took her to Eindhoven, where I stay with the people I stay with. And she said, "I finally get it. You're part of the furniture here." And what somebody said to me last year when I was over there, I think it was in Bucharest or something, they said, summer's not actually started until you're here. until you arrive, and then we go, summer's here.
Yep.
You know, the dickhead is in the spare room.
Indeed. Indeed. Indeed.
But I mean, I really love what I do in this room, which is songwriting and recording.
Yes.
I love that. It's the fact that what gives me the biggest kick is that I'll be playing somewhere in the world, wherever it is, and I'll be playing a song and people are enjoying it, and I go, I wrote that in the toilet.
Nice one.
You know,
exactly.
I mean, there's a tune on the last album called Giddy Up, and I wrote that while I was shaving. And I went, I know what I could do. That'd be funny. And I started writing it on a piece of paper next to the mirror. And then you play that live, and that's the kick.
Yeah.
The fact that you're playing those songs and they've come out of nowhere.
Sure.
I mean, the Count Me In, the first track on the record, which I'm absolutely proud of. I think it's fantastic.
Terrific. Yeah.
It's one of those ones where you write it and you go, I don't believe that was me. And it all came together beautifully. Like Ezra Lee's playing piano on it, and my normal band, well, I'm playing drums on it, but and then I was lying in bed somewhere in Europe, and I woke up and it was like 35 degrees. And their philosophy is different from ours a bit. Like, we'll go and see a gig in the middle of winter. They don't. It's snowing. You don't go out. And as soon as the sun comes out in April, they're into it. And you'll be sitting after a club and it'll be 3 a.m. and you go, why are there people everywhere? And they'll go, we don't go to bed till 4 or 5 in the summer because we know it's going to be winter soon.
Yep.
I mean, I played at a brilliant festival. Luckily I played there 3 times, called Brzoj. It's the open air blues festival in way up in Transylvania. And last year, just to give you an idea how big these festivals are, last year we played, it was some German band, then us, then Beth Hart. So it's a big deal. And that was Tuesday night. So, and there was another week. And they said, there's your room. You can stay 2 weeks if you want. And I went, yes, I think I will. But after the gig finishes, they say, do you want to come to the beer tent? The beer tent holds 5,000 people. And I said, what time's this close? And they said, when everyone goes.
Wow.
And different from here, you know, you pull that up at a festival and they go, oh, yeah, there's the beer.
Yep.
Help yourself. Your dinner will be here in half an hour. So that was Count Me In. I just thought to myself, whenever there's a good time happening in Europe and here, I'll be going, I'll be there.
Exactly.
And the older you get, you know, you haven't got that many of those nights. Left in you.
Never say never.
But I love watching the young guys just fall down. And you just, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Trust me, I used to do gigs in Melbourne with a guy who unfortunately died. His name was Gil Askey.
Right.
Now Gil was the horn arranger for Tamla Motown in the 60s here.
Yeah, right, okay.
In fact, there's a recording I did, which is on my Bandcamp. It's called Tommy McEwan's International Playboys. And that's Gil and a guy called Jimmy Sloggett, who was in Johnny O'Keefe's band. One of the great saxophone players, Australian saxophone players. And you'd be doing a gig with Gil, and Gil would have been in his 80s when I first started playing with him. And it'd be 2 a.m, and he'd go, come on, let's go. And you go, Gil, give us a break. No, man, we're partying. And I thought, well, that's me. I want that. And that recording I did with him was when he was 92.
Wow.
And he still came round and he drove himself around. And we just played old R&B in the big house. And I recorded it. And he was so much fun. And I went, well, that's what being music is for me.
Yeah, right.
It's fun.
It's fun, exactly.
It's not a real job, you know.
No.
I've done real jobs. They're not fun.
No.
Yeah.
No. Wow, that's just Yeah. Stories.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the other one was I got to tour with was I got asked one time to go up to Queensland to open for Russell Morris and Brian Catt.
Mm.
And I said, okay, well, I'll just bring an acoustic. And they went, no, you're playing with the band. And the band had Harry Bruce in it,
Yeah.
who's an absolute legend. He's been in every great band in Australia. And that guy, he was just a total inspiration to me. I mean, he came round, he was playing with Leo Sayer at the Melbourne Arts Centre. He called me up and said, put the coffee on, I'm coming around. And he said, I'm bringing my bass. So he turned up with his bass and he played on 2 songs on an album I did called That and a Quarter. And he recently called me. In fact, that on the Little Devil album, there's a duet I did with Ezra Lee, and that's Harry playing bass.
Yeah, right. Okay.
He sent me a message. There better be a song on there for me to play on. And he's terrifying. He's send it. And whenever I'm in Sydney, I call him up and I go, "What do you need? Drums or guitar?" "Come round, I'll play some drums." And I'll record something for him.
Yeah.
And those guys ooze music. Music just comes out of their pores. And that's, I guess, the joy of what I get to do. You've got to look at like Dave Hole. I mean, how old is Dave now?
Yeah.
I mean, he's still rocking and he's still touring. Hey, good on him,
That's unreal. Yeah. All right. What can fans...
the other, sorry, just to finish that off.
Go for it.
When I was about 20 in Melbourne, growing up, I used to go and see every single band. And luckily, we had the big beer bars. And you could see AC/DC, Billy Thorpe, you name it. They were all on. And I used to go and see Little River Band in the very early days.
Yeah.
Now I'm playing in a band with Roger McLaughlin, who was the bass player in that band. And I used to be one of those little annoying guys that would try and buttonhole musicians. They were trying to pick up women. I'd go, "Oh, what sort of bass is that?"
Yeah.
And they still treat me like the kid.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. And when I'm with, you just shut up and you listen because they've got knowledge that you need.
That's terrific. Yeah.
And just to tie that in a little neat bow, when they opened the casino in Melbourne, I got a call asking us if we'd like to play the first 2 nights. They didn't tell us who the big band was, and it turned out to be B.B. King. He played 2 nights in a club that held 500 people max. Yeah. And the first night I thought, oh, we'll get to meet him. But if you know anything about B.B. King, he walks in through the back door of the venue. They hand him his guitar and he plays.
Yeah, right.
He walks straight on stage. He doesn't hang around in the venue. And the band's already played 2 songs. And then as soon as he finishes, he puts the guitar down and leaves. Yeah. And the band's still playing. So I didn't get to meet him. But the second night, he was late. So they said, play another song. So afterwards, he came up and said hello. And I'm just standing there with that face.
Yeah.
And I got to sit on stage the second night with the 2 drummers and because I became pals with them and just watched from behind what they were doing, and just learned heaps. And that kind of tied it all in a big bow for me.
Yeah.
Being able to do that.
That's unreal. I would have loved to have been at I would love to have had that interest in blues music way back then. That would have been like, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you didn't have an older brother who'd go, David Bowie.
Oh no!
And he'd throw that disc away and put on Sonny. Now listen to this.
That's it. That would have been
And it seeps in. It does seep into your consciousness eventually.
Yeah.
And luckily, playing with the Sidewalks, who were a New Orleans R&B band, basically, I learned the mechanics of it from the saxophone player's side and the bass player's side, and you sort of go, okay. And they would turn me on to other musics, like Second Line in New Orleans, Cajun music, and that. Hey, you know what? Music. What is it? Bob Marley said, "When it hits, you feel no pain."
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. No. 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 So, what can fans expect from you in the near future? Any new projects coming up?
Well,
Tours?
we're going on. We're launching the CD. I wanted to launch it at a place called the Lomond Hotel, the Lowy, which is
Yep.
it's been going for 30, 40 years. That place. It's unbelievable. It's like the what is it? The Perth Blues Club at that.
Oh
uh,
yes.
it's like that. When you play
Yep.
there, that's a good place to start. And then I've got some shows in Sydney, and I've got two shows in Brisbane, and then Adelaide at the end of September. And hopefully we can get us to Bridgetown at some stage, because I've got some good pals over there. I've done some touring in Perth, and I really loved it. I've even
Mm.
played in Geraldton and stuff like that, and that was great fun.
Mm.
Um, Again, it's logistically a hassle getting all the guys over, so you have to kind of do a hybrid. But I love the Vibrillators. They're one of my favorite bands.
Yes.
Hank and Jobby, you know, they're great guys. So I've been talking to those guys about coming over and playing with them. I think that'd be fun.
Mm.
Yeah, and then I didn't go to Europe this year because I started this new album, and there's a Spanish record company that wants to put it out, and it took so long to finish it that
Yep.
they said, "Well, we haven't got time to tour you." So, and due to various skullduggery with my agents, nothing horrible. Just this guy fell in love with this guy's wife, and then he's not talking to him, and then they go, maybe not this year,
Yep.
maybe not this year. So, I'll be definitely going next year. And then I've been offered a little bit of some stuff happening here and there. There's quite a lot of American bands cover my songs,
Yeah.
um,
Right.
which is great.
Yeah.
And they always say, well, if you're around these parts, let us know and we'll organize a little tour for you. And I think I'll do that
Yeah.
next year as well. But nothing in the book so far. I just wanted to get this record finished,
Yep.
get it out, and quietly go broke in McKinnon in my studio.
Fantastic. It's a great way to go.
No, don't tell my wife.
Look out.
Nah. There's always enough work. I've
No.
produced a lot of CDs for bands here as well.
Okay.
There's a lady called Marissa Quigley who had a band called Chubby Ray and the Elevators. I think they played at Bridgetown. I did
Mm.
her album, and that was a lot of fun. A couple of other bands I've produced albums for, and I'm currently producing an album for a guy here in Melbourne, and that kind of keeps the winter ticking over.
Mm.
Even though I don't like the cold weather,
Yeah. Yep.
nobody.
It's always a shocker.
But hey, I'd rather be here than in Scotland in winter.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
Yeah. So the plans are to promote this record, get on the road, and build that back up, because COVID put a big dent in everyone's touring, and I want to go out there and do it again. I've got gigs in Sydney that I love, and I've got gigs in Brisbane I love, but that we used to go away for 6 weeks and work every night. A lot of those small gigs in the country have gone now, and so you've got to try and find out who's cool now. Where's the cool venues to play at?
Yep.
And that's what I'm going to be doing over the next 3 to 4 months.
Sure. All right. All right. So your music, your back catalogue can be found on Bandcamp?
It's all there on Bandcamp. I've finally joined the 21st century and made everything available for download. You can actually get the whole catalog. I think it's about $60 or something, and you can download all 8 albums. It's a strange thing they do, and I've kept the download to $7 because I'd rather people got to hear it and thought, oh, $7, you don't mind. There's a lot of American bands do this, and a lot of bands that I've kind of thought, oh, that sounds interesting. You download their album and it's great. And then I'll pay more for the next album. A lot of people on Bandcamp have a habit of, instead of paying $7, they pay $12. And you go, awesome, that's great. They're saying, hey, it's worth it. It doesn't happen very often with my music, but, in theory.
In theory.
Nah, it's great. I love it. In fact, I've had people pay $20 for the damn thing, and you feel bad. I just sent over a couple of CDs to somebody in, I think, Joondalup of all places. Yeah. I played at the Joondalup Festival.
Yeah, right. Okay.
That was awesome fun.
Yeah.
And so it's up to me to get off my bahookie, as we say in Scotland, and start touring again.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tommy, appreciate you having the chat. Been fantastic.
Nothing else to do. It's freezing.
Yes.
And I finally figured out Google Chrome. This is amazing.
It is.
How long has this been a thing?
Oh.
The internet.
Technology, my friend. Yeah, that's
the internet. I love people are going crazy about AI at the moment. I don't mind it. It's interesting. It's how you use it.
It's how you use it.
I've been working on this country song for this band, and they wanted a demo of it. I typed in the chords and went country, and it spat out this backing track.
Yeah.
And I put a vocal on and sent it to them, and they went, "Oh, mate, we didn't want you to spend hours and hours and hours on this." And I went, "Trust me, I didn't."
No.
If AI, as soon as AI makes my lunch, it'll have my respect.
That's funny. That's classic. Yeah. All right, Tommy. Well, good talking to you, and
thanks for getting in touch.
I appreciate you taking the time.
No worries, Kev.
Lovely.
Cheers to everyone in Perth. Bye-bye.
I will. Cheers. Bye.